Macrometa has invested the last 5 to 7 years building a proprietary real-time stack that combines a global data network that we have constructed, a proprietary technology that allows us to bring data to thousands and thousands of locations around the world and keep it in sync.
Hi, this is your Swapnil Bhartia and welcome to TFL Let's Talk. Today we have with us Chetan Venkatesh, CEO and co-founder of Macrometa. Chetan, it's great to have you on the show.
Swapnil, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well. It's my honor to host you here today. I would love to know a bit about Macrometa. What are some of the challenges that you see modern enterprises face that is still needed to be solved, which led to the co-creation of Macrometa?
That's a great question. Going back almost 6 or 7 years, my co-founder Durga Gokina and I noticed that a lot of large internet sites that dealt with a lot of data, primarily in use cases like e-commerce, media, video, OTT, and things like that, were really struggling with performance. And performance is extremely important in these types of situations because users expect a high quality of experience when they're using mobile applications or websites and things like that. And unfortunately, what we learned was that a lot of the infrastructure that has historically supported the web and applications is just not able to keep up with modern applications that are more data driven, that are more real time. And especially now in the era of AI, the content delivery networks, or what are called CDNs, have just not been able to keep up with the demands for data in real time. And so we started Macrometa in 2018 to address this by building two types of infrastructures. One, a global data network so that we could bring data to many different places around the world and keep hot data local so that applications and APIs can take advantage of it. And number two, build an AI-based edge delivery network that can optimize and accelerate today's modern applications by leveraging AI and real-time data. So that's what Macrometa does. We help the internet's largest sites, SaaS providers, and APIs take their applications and improve their performance and deliver them anywhere in the world with up to 500% more performance while improving their scalability and privacy posture.
When we talk about that, CDNs were not able to handle this, emerging new workload. What is it the size of data? Is it the kind of data? Is it the quality of data? Is it because too much back and forth? Because companies now just gathering data, they are extracting value and they are immediately sending the value back to the customers as well. So can you also talk about how the data landscape itself has evolved and which also is creating, new opportunities for Macrometa?
That genuinely is the billion-dollar question. And I think you alluded to it in your question itself. The quality and the nature of data has changed over the last 10 years. If you go back 15 years, let's jump into a time machine, go back 15 years and you sort of go to the early days of the web, you notice that the web is mostly static. It's only for publishing information. And then it was only in the last maybe 12 years or 10 years that we started to make the web interactive. So data started to go back and forth between users and the cloud, or the backend, as we used to call it. And then over the last 10 years, we've seen the adoption of cloud and the complete transformation of the backend into microservices, into APIs and things like that, right? So this transformation has created a lot of richness in the way we can construct apps. And that's primarily happened because we've started to leverage dynamic HTML technologies, JavaScript, etc., extensively. But the flip side of that is CDNs have historically only handled published data or static content, as it's called, things that don't change. But the nature of data today is it's changing every second, every minute. When we go to a website or open our apps, we expect them to be instantaneous. We expect them to know who we are. And we expect them to be able to help us get our jobs done as quickly as possible, as easily as possible. And so CDNs still have a role to play, but that role has diminished over the years. And the role of the cloud has grown as a result of that. And there's now a gap in the market for an infrastructure like the CDN, but with more cloud-like capabilities where you can run stateful computing, you can bring data and you can bring AI and run it on a network of locations around the world like a CDN does, but specifically for these types of new cloud native apps and APIs. So that's the big shift that has happened in the industry over the last 10, 15 years.
How does Macrometa helps bridge that gap?
Macrometa has invested the last 5 to 7 years building a proprietary real-time stack that combines a global data network that we have constructed, a proprietary technology that allows us to bring data to thousands and thousands of locations around the world and keep it in sync. So as an example, today global supply chains, kind of spread the world. So if somebody makes an update to an order in New Delhi, that order has to be instantaneously available in New York. So the ability to have data be instantly available in thousands of locations around the world is what the global data network provides. And on top of that, we have brought some new innovations to the edge. We've brought the first language transformers and generative AI capabilities to help website operators take their existing websites and use generative AI and machine learning to automatically optimize their site performance by improving the performance of JavaScript and HTML. So think about it as essentially what Macromet has done is essentially built an AI performance engine that runs in hundreds of locations around the world. And every time somebody accesses an app or a site, it's able to, in real time, pull the data, optimize it, and deliver it in 50 milliseconds or less anywhere in the world. And 50 milliseconds is an important threshold, Swapnil, because the human brain can't detect change under 80 milliseconds. So if something happens under 80 milliseconds, it feels like it's instantaneous to us. And so what Macrometa does is really make your sites and apps really feel like they're instantaneous, even though they might be running in a cloud data center very far away, or there may be very complex computations that are happening that require more processing and time to be able to deliver. So it kind of compresses time and accelerates all of this and delivers it in a very seamless way, all without code changes. And that's the most important thing, which is our customers don't need to make any code changes. They simply connect us to their existing infrastructure. And our platform, Photonic, which is the edge delivery network, can do this seamlessly for them.
I would like to talk about Photonic quickly, but before we go there, I also want to quickly talk about there are also a lot of workloads, could be Uber, ride share, food delivery, which also help in real time. They actually need to know where you are. They need to track the drivers. And how has the real time data or streaming data has also changed the dynamics a bit more? And then how is Macrometa kind of helping with these kind of workloads as well?
You're absolutely right. So there are two broad classes of applications you want to think about them. We call them request response applications, right? Which is your typical standard client server type of an interaction where you open a browser, you make a request, and the server responds. So that's one class. And the other class is, as you point out, Swapnil, real-time applications where you need a continuous stream of data that are coming in. The challenge with apps of the latter category where you have continuous streams of data coming in is that it's a scale problem. If you take a rideshare company or a delivery or a food delivery company as an example, they may have tens of thousands of riders or drivers on the road at any given point in time, all emitting fairly important, significant amounts of data. So our platform essentially localizes all that processing. Today, you have to bring all of that into the cloud. You have to store it somewhere. You have to process it somewhere and then do something with it. It all adds a lot of complexity, cost, and latency when you do it that way. Instead, if you use an edge delivery network like ours, you can do all of that processing locally. So as an example, a rideshare company would not need to send all its data into a centralized cloud location. In the cities that they're operating in, we have POPs with our partner Akamai, for example. We have regional data centers with Akamai. All of that processing can be done locally, and you can offload all of that from the cloud, reducing your cost, but most importantly, being able to handle 100 times more data at a fraction of the time that it would take you to try and process that in the cloud. So latency is one of the biggest advantages, and in region local processing is the other big advantage that our edge delivery network Photonic gives for these types of use cases. If I can give you one example, if you take sports as one of the things, live sports, it's one of the biggest markets for the internet. Everybody goes on the internet to check scores or to watch games, etc. Being able to deliver high quality real-time data from the games to the fans who are watching it is extremely important, because fans are now multi-screen. They're going to be watching a game on a big TV. They're also going to have their iPads and phones open, and they're consuming all of this content, and it all needs to be synchronized with low latency. the minute there's any lag or jitter, there's a difference between what you're seeing on your TV versus what you're seeing on your phone, the experience degrades. And so all of this is sort of driving the next generation of applications to combine, traditional web delivery techniques with more real-time techniques like this. And AI plays a very important role in all of this as we go forward, because AI really acts as the layer that understands how to bring different types of data experiences together and present them in the most consistent and accurate way for in this case, fans to be able to consume sports data, for example, and enjoy the events.
Talk a bit about Photonic and, is it kind of services, what kind of services that are there? And if you can also talk a bit about the technologies that are powering it.
So Photonic is designed to solve three classes of problems, Swapnil. First is, how do we help our customers accelerate their modern applications and APIs? Today, our modern apps are powered by JavaScript extensively, and JavaScript is an expensive resource in many ways because remember, JavaScript is running in your browser, it's running on your mobile phone, things like that. And the more dynamic we want to make our apps and sites, as an example, if you go to an e-commerce site, you want the site to recognize who you are, and you want the site to be helpful by showing you recommendations, personalizations of things that you're interested in. You don't want to go to a page that just has lots of things that you're not interested in, as an example. So Photonic's first job is how can we deliver these types of experiences that are data-driven as quickly as possible, instantaneously, and delight the end user. So for that, we provide a service called Photonic Performance Proxy. P3, you connect it to your backend system, you connect it to your CDN like Akamai, and within a day or two, it's able to take your existing application and bump up the performance by about 500% without any code changes. And what that translates to, Swapnil, is less bounce rates, for example. If you're in e-commerce, you care a lot about how long people are staying on your site on different pages. It translates to improved conversion, which means more people are clicking and buying from your site by using something like P3. The second service that we provide for accelerating apps is specifically for mobile devices. Almost 70% of the internet today is mobile. And if you go into emerging markets, if you go into Asia Pacific, that number is even higher because they've kind of had a big telecom revolution over there. And so one of the biggest challenges in mobile application performance is, most people don't know this, but the performance of your app is actually driven by your battery level. So if your battery is under 80% or under 50%, the application gets slower and slower. And so we have a technology that we call JavaScript offload that moves the JavaScript execution away from the mobile device and does it on our edge networks, thereby allowing very high quality, low latency digital experiences on mobile devices as well. Another service that we provide is an AI-based pre-rendering service for websites to improve their organic traffic and reduce their reliance on paid traffic. Today, web crawlers, unfortunately, still tend to interact with websites without the benefit of things like JavaScript, and so they don't see all the content that is available on your site. So Photonic uses AI as a way to render the content in a very effective and purpose-specific way for crawlers and LLM bots and things like that, so that they can discover your content and improve your rankings in the search, as well as drive more organic traffic to to your website. As an example, one of our customers is one of the largest events ticketing systems in the world, with more than 25 global properties around the world, and they sell millions of dollars of tickets every hour. So they use our technology as a way to improve the way their content is visible to both users as well as to search crawlers, so that when you're looking for an event, you want to watch a concert or something like that, you can very quickly get that ticket and go and enjoy that experience. So, those are some of the things that it does. And then the third focus for our Photonic Edge Delivery Network really is privacy. Privacy has become one of the most important new emerging considerations for almost every large internet company today in the world. If you have a website, chances are you're collecting some form of personally identifiable information, especially if people are buying something from you. They're going to give you at some point their credit card information or payment information or maybe a delivery address and things like that. And this kind of sensitive information is regulated now. Many countries have rules and regulations about how to store, process, and share that information. So Photonic makes that an automatic experience by automatically detecting when your website is collecting PII and ensuring that it is always in compliance with the regulation of the land. So one example, say you build an application or a website that's now being used in 15, 20 countries. It's very hard for you to comply with all the different 20, regulations, right? So Photonic just makes that an instantaneous experience by automatically, helping you become compliant with these types of things. Again, it's the power of our real-time platform, network, and AI that allows us to provide this kind of very intelligent delivery services that content delivery services, CDNs are just not able to.
When I look at these services and the kind of user base of clientele you have, do they have the flexibility of choosing whichever services they deem fit for their current use case? And as they either grow or whether horizontally or vertically, they can, add new services. What kind of flexibility is there?
Yeah, it's very much a question of what I call an a la carte menu, right? Which is different customers have different priorities. Some customers may be prioritizing solving their privacy posture, while others are trying to improve website performance because they've got a big shopping season that's coming up in a few months, and they really want to improve their conversion rates. So we provide very granular services, and customers can pick and choose which ones they want to use. Now, some of these services are kind of like intercomposable, like Lego blocks. So while you can use them individually, you can also use them together, and that tends to improve the overall outcomes that you're trying to use. As an example, if you pair our performance proxy along with our JavaScript offloader and our pre-rendering engine, it'll improve your conversion rates, it'll reduce your bounce rates, but it'll also improve the organic traffic that is coming to your website. And the three of those things are very synergistic. It's kind of like, how everybody tells you to get healthy, right? You got to eat well, you got to diet, and you got to exercise, right? It's kind of like that. You can do all of those things, or you can do one of those things. With Photonic, by combining some of these services, you can really optimize your outcomes more strategically than by just picking or choosing one of those services.
These days, because of ChatGPT and LLMs and everything, it has kind of every industry is kind of wanting to use it. But from your perspective, what kind of industries are there that realistically, those are companies, organizations, or industries, they really rely on AI. AI really adds a lot of value to them from Macrometa's perspective, because of course everybody wants to use it, right?
AI is sort of one of those big, generation-defining technology movements, right? And we all have different, definitions of what it is as well. We tend to think of AI as really machine learning driven. So we can use a lot of machine learning to understand patterns in data and use those patterns to solve some very important problems with application performance, scalability, privacy, as one example. And but the more common definition these days when we talk about AI tends to be more of generative AI, and specifically large language models that you can chat with. And I think that's a really important area, Swapnil, because LLMs and ChatGPT like technologies are becoming intermediaries between us and information now, right? So today, I do my shopping online through my mobile app, through a website, but I believe in the short future, there will be LLM based agents that will act as my concierge or your concierge and become intermediaries in the way we interact with, e-commerce, in the way we consume media, etc. So, we are focused very narrowly on those types of use cases. Obviously, the surface is very big. You can use AI in financial services in all kinds of interesting ways, in security and other ways. For us, we're very narrowly looking at what happens to the world when AI becomes an intermediary layer between an e-commerce shopper and the e-commerce site, or somebody who's consuming news from a news media website. Can the AI act as a layer that helps make the news more informative, more truthful, more honest? Can it strip out opinions, for example, and just give you the facts? So we're starting to look at how do we layer on generative AI in front of websites and applications in such a way that we can help those sites and sites and vendors deliver very streamlined value in the context of having these intermediaries be their representatives to the end user.
As much as we talk about AI, we have started talking about security also a lot. Security is no longer someone else's problem. It is moving, after we talk about shift left movement, what's moving in developers' pipeline is becoming a priority. Talk about from Macrometa's perspective, how important is security and what do you folks do so that while organizations are leveraging all these technologies, there is an aspect of security as well.
Yeah, I think, security is one of those things that no one company will solve, right? It is an ecosystem, and it's probably the fastest evolving part of this entire industry. Changes almost on an hourly or a daily basis at the very least. So our focus is to do two things, I think. We specifically focus on the security of our platform and layer in terms of how we store, process, and distribute data around the world. We do that using many different security techniques that will encrypt the data in motion, encrypt it on at rest, and more importantly, allow very secure ways of fencing off data so that you can be both compliant regulatorily from a regulatory standpoint, as well as from just being able to keep your data safe from other attack vectors and things like that. However, we are a part of a much larger ecosystem. There are networks like Akamai that sit in front of us that provide very advanced threat detection and mitigation capabilities. So incoming threats into your data and security, for example, are mitigated at that particular layer. And then behind us on the cloud layer, there are other security products, for example, and services that need to be incorporated to make sure that your software supply chains, for example, are intact, and that you don't have any challenges in the way you're doing your CI/CD as you shift left and incorporate more security practices directly into your development. So again, I'll say that we see our role as really having we're one link in the chain of security, an important link, no doubt, but we also rely on our partners in the front of us, partners like Akamai, as well as our cloud partners, to be able to deliver a full 360-degree secure platform for these types of use cases to our customer.
One more thing that I want to talk to you about is the importance of culture. When we look at Macrometa, when we look at different teams, what kind of personas that do you target? Who can benefit from your services? And also, if you can also talk about the importance of culture practices in this world.
It's such a great question. I think we can have a podcast just on that particular topic, Swapnil. So from Macrometa's perspective, we see ourselves as stakeholders who are very invested in helping the largest internet organizations, their SRE teams, their site reliability engineering teams, their platform engineering teams, and their performance engineering teams really be able to take advantage of the edge delivery network to solve their core problems. Today, SRE organizations are being asked to scale their infrastructure while keeping it cost efficient and making it even more faster and high performance. Sometimes these three things don't come together very, very neatly. And so a lot of these SRE and web performance organizations are sort of taking one step forward and taking two steps back with each release. It's a very challenging world because there's so much complexity that these organizations deal with. We're kind of the simple button for these types of problems. If your application performance is poor, if your site performance is poor, if you have, if you want to improve your conversion rates, for example, you're not going to be able to engineer it just by throwing more humans at the problem. You need to bring AI, you need to bring machine learning to take advantage of the vast amounts of data, that are available that can streamline all of this for you in a simple way. So our focus is on enabling and empowering these organizations. And then, tangentially, all of this connects to how do we help our customers make more money? Ultimately, you've got to help your customers monetize their sites and make more money, or help them reduce costs and become efficient in some ways. So we focus heavily on those two value propositions for this community or this culture, right, that you talked about, which is SRE, performance engineering, and web performance engineering. And I think the other question that you asked is also a very thoughtful one, which is, how does culture play in all of this? I think that the internet is built on trust, and that's one of the most fundamental parts of it. But we're now moving into the zero trust era, right? And that's important for the internet to scale. Trust itself has constraints in that trust doesn't scale easily. But zero trust, or at least creating factors in which we can create trust dynamically, just in time, anytime somebody needs a resource or needs something from the internet, is the way to go, and that's what creates scalability. So I think my advice to almost all organizations is adopt zero trust types of approaches. Approach things that allow you to scale and become more efficient, while being able to create trust on demand. Trust as a service is almost sort of what I think of when we think about zero trust networks, because that's what allows trust and safety to scale.
Chetan, thank you so much for joining me today. Talk about Macrometa and how you folks are solving modern challenges for modern enterprises. Thanks for great insights, and I would love to chat with you folks again. Thank you.
Thanks, Swapnil. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and all the great, thoughtful questions that you gave me really got me thinking. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to coming back, hopefully in the future.